You've got rights. We defeated the British. Now what? The year is 1791. After a bloody war against the British, the American colonists have won their independence. The new Americans are excited, but some people are afraid about what rights they'll have under a new government. They've already suffered under the heavy hand of the British king. Now some American leaders want to create a list of rights to define what rights American citizens will have. Leaders of the new United States of America have already written a constitution that explains exactly how the new government will work. The only problem? It can't take effect until it's approved by the new states. And there are some state leaders who don't like it. Known as the Anti-Federalists, these people don't even like the Constitution. They fear a strong central government, and they are demanding that the Constitution include a list of citizens' rights. Without such a list, they warn the national government will violate people's rights. They're threatening to stop the Constitution from being approved unless a list is added. But another group, known as the Federalists, insists the Constitution alone is enough to protect citizens' rights. They warn that it's impossible to list every single right that citizens should have. But once rights are written, the government could take advantage by violating rights that aren't on the list. Both sides are convinced they're right. To move forward, they hammer out a compromise, the Bill of Rights. Instead of including a list of rights in the main part of the Constitution, they added as the first 10 amendments or changes to the Constitution. One of these amendments assures that the rights listed are not the only rights that citizens have. There are three main categories of rights: individual freedoms, protections against government abuse and power, and rights of people accused of crimes. In a few minutes, you'll read the actual text of the Bill of Rights compared to the pamphlet of protections you created. We're actually going to do that tomorrow. More and more rights. As time went on, later amendments added more rights to the Constitution. Amending the Constitution is not an easy process, and it's not supposed to be. But the difficult process has meant some important rights were slow to evolve. After the bloody Civil War was fought between the northern and southern states, African Americans who had been enslaved in the United States gained their freedom. In the 1860s and 70s, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments added rights for former slaves and people of color. In the 20th century, the 19th and 26th Amendments added voting rights for women and citizens as young as 18. Even today, people are campaigning to amend the Constitution to add rights for groups that are still disadvantaged. Here's what you need to do to make sure you finish everything you need to do today. Number 1, take the quiz. You know the deal with the quizzes. 3 questions, 6 points total, 1 point just for answering a question, 2 points for getting it right, 0 points for not getting it done on time. Open book, open note, and open internet. Find your answers where you can get them. Go back and listen to the video to find answers or check out the reading on your own. And then you want to complete the review activities. They are checked for completion. Answers are provided on the following slides, along with guidance and instruction to find correct answers. There is always feedback submitted for your review activities. Let's take a look at the 3 activities that we're going to be looking at for this lesson. Let's start with A, categorize. Below is a list of the rights found in the constitutional amendments. Complete the graphic organizer by writing the number of each right beneath the category it belongs to. And our 3 categories are individual freedoms, protection from government power, and rights of the accused, rights that people who are accused of a crime would have. So let's start with individual freedoms. Let's find an example of that. And our first one is actually a good example. The freedom to practice any religion or no religion is an individual freedom. It is something that you are able to do. You can practice any religion or no religion that you choose. Let's take a look at one that is a protection from government power. So that would be number 4, no unreasonable searches and seizures by the government. So that is protecting you from having the government come in and search or take your stuff. And rights of the accused, so these would be all ones that have to do with crime. So if I look at 5B, no person can be tried twice for the same crime. That means that if you are on trial for a crime, you cannot be found innocent and then put on trial for the same thing again right after that. So all you're going to be doing is you're going to be trying to sort all of these rights into those 3 categories. That takes us to part B, Federalist versus Anti-Federalist. Decide whether each statement describes Federalists, Anti-Federalists, or both. Write the letter in the correct area of the Venn diagram. Let's do A, B, and C together. Let's start with A, feared a strong central government. So we can always think of the strong central government as a federal government. So Federalists would probably support it, which would mean that Anti-Federalists would oppose it. B, thought the Constitution was enough to protect citizens' rights. So this, it did talk pretty extensively that there was a group that didn't want to really write down the specific rights because they thought that if you put a list, people might just violate those. So it would be the Federalists. They thought the Constitution alone was enough. And agreed to the Bill of Rights as a compromise. Well, if you know it's a compromise, you know it's probably going to be both, and we have the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, so that's definitely going to be something that both would have done. And then part C, no rights for you. Use your imagination to just describe the worst possible thing that might happen if each of these amendments were missing from the Constitution. So without this might happen. So without the Sixth Amendment, what might happen? Well, I can see what these say over here on the left side. So what I recommend doing is just taking a look to your left here. So we have, without the Sixth Amendment, I see the right to a speedy trial and people accused of a crime have the right to a lawyer. So what might be the worst thing to happen in that case? Well, people could sit in jail for years without a trial or a lawyer. So if nobody's telling them what their rights are and how to get through the legal system, and there's no right to a speedy trial, people could sit in jail for years but have never done anything wrong. So that's a big reason why we have the Sixth Amendment. So you're going to do the same thing with the Fourth, which is no unreasonable searches and seizures by the government. The Eighth, no cruel and unusual punishments. We know that one pretty well. And the First, so we have two examples there, but there are some other things to the First Amendment. So it's the freedom to practice any religion, the right to peacefully assemble, the right to free speech, and there are several other pieces to the First Amendment. Overall, there are about 4 or 5 major rights that are guaranteed in the Fourth Amendment, or in the First Amendment. So double check that if you are unsure, and overall, it's just important that you have a little bit of a background about how we got the Bill of Rights. We're going to take a look at some of the specific rights and protections in our next lesson.